majestically and kicks the goal. Making something out of nothing.
Malchesky, is that the grand final?
Jimmy Bartell can make a hero of himself.
That is a brilliant snap. He's kicked the goal and Freeman to win it after the siren. What a game of football at the MCG.
Welcome to another episode of The Protected Zone, where we discuss everything that relates to AFL. I'm Eddie J, and...
This is Lin Tan NM. Hello to everyone. Hello to Eddie, and I'm here in West Sumatra.
And I'm here in inner city Sydney, where it's freezing May night, and that's great AFL weather as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, it is very hot today. I think the maximum temperature was 32 again, and but because of the humidity, it felt like 40 degrees.
Well, that is very, very, very hot. Now, before we continue on the show, because we do have a growing audience now, and sometimes people ask us, well, how do I get the Protected Zone? How can I listen in? Where do I get it from? Now, the best thing to do is look us up on iTunes and subscribe there, and you won't miss one program at all. And we're also on SoundCloud, so you can do a search on SoundCloud, and we're also on YouTube. Can you believe it? So there's a number of different ways that you can find us, and if all of those features fail, you can always go to our website, which is theprotectedzone.com.
That sounds all things covered in the protected zone.
Yes. Now, AFL is played in Australia, and supposedly Australia is this Judeo-Christian country, as the conservative politicians like to keep telling us, but Indonesia is a little bit different. What's happening over there at the moment?
Well, with the arrival of New Moon at the end of last week, Saturday, some people started on Sunday, we are having the month of Ramadan. It's often called the month of fasting, but it's a bit more than fasting. And in fact, it's wrong to call it fasting because, during this month, actually, the consumption of food increases. As I have found that export of beef from Australia increases this month to Indonesia. So it's wrong to assume that everyone's starving in this month, but to me, it's just a change of patterns, habits. You normally have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But during the month of Ramadan, people get up at very early. This morning I got up at 3:30 and went for the what they call sahur, which means pre-dawn meal. Before the first prayer starts, people tuck into things before the sunrise. They eat their first big meal of the day, and indeed during the day they abstain from eating food, drinking anything. Not smoking, and of course no sex. The whole idea is to not to put in through your body anything from your cavity, all your cavities of your body. So misleading to call it fasting. Yes, indeed, we don't eat during the day, but to me it's more taxing to go without water or drinking during the day. Imagine, in the 40 plus degree days without drinking. It's not easy.
It sounds like it's quite difficult, but Ramadan commenced a couple of days ago, so it's going on for 40 days. Is that correct?
It goes on for a month, 28 days or 29 days. And officially it started last Saturday, but some people, even though they're Muslim, believing in the same religion, same sect, whatever, but they have a different interpretation of the moon. It's to coincide with the arrival of a new moon, and some people believe the new moon didn't arrive until Sunday, so they didn't fast they didn't observe Ramadan on Saturday and went into Ramadan on Sunday. So there's a bit of discrepancy, but all the shops and all the cafes and restaurants are closed during the day, and you certainly don't see anyone eating in public, drinking in public, smoking in public. No sex, of course, in public, even outside the Ramadan month. But it is a bit strange. People look very contrived.
Well, round 10, I don't think we can actually call it Ramadan round because the round actually started on Thursday night and there was a match on Friday night, but maybe another round we can refer to as the Ramadan round. But quite a few things happened in round 10 and it was quite exciting. There were lots of thrillers and there was probably an issue of too many battles of the birds. Do you think there were too many battles of the birds?
Well, that's inevitable. There are so many teams in AFL that has got the birds in their emblems. They should have water buffaloes. I'm just looking outside in the neighbouring rice paddy. There's a couple of water buffaloes working. They're preparing for the rice planting, I think, tomorrow or the day after, it looks like. No, water buffaloes is a good name for the potential team, and avoid the battle of birds. And along with the battle of birds, there are too many battle of the West, don't you think?
Yes, there are too many battles of the West. I don't think we had any battles of the West on the weekend, but the round did start off with two classics. This was 2 days before Ramadan started, but it was actually Geelong against Port Adelaide, and they played an absolute classic of a game. It had everything in it, thrills and spills, back and forth, close game, and then finally in the final 25 seconds or so, one of the players, Port Adelaide players, was dragged down in their own goal square. They were tackled and then the siren went.
Yes, we often talk about this last-minute thrillers, games decided inside the last 2 minutes, if not last few seconds. Thrillers shouldn't come this frequently, I think, but yes, as you said, last weekend we had 2 games that ended like that, and riveting. Yeah, it is. Do you think it's a result of this evening teams and, of course, outside Brisbane, other than Brisbane, everyone seems to have got a chance?
Yes, there are 18 teams in the AFL competition, and as far as I can see, 17 teams are performing quite well. The exception to the rule is Brisbane, and I'm not sure if they'll win another game throughout the rest of the season, but all of the other teams, they're performing reasonably well. From week to week, you just don't know who's going to win, who's going to lose. And as Bob Dylan once said, the first one now will later be last, and that's exactly what happened on the weekend in some cases.
And also, I've noticed there were many matches, this week. Melbourne overcame a huge deficit, and the week before Collingwood did. They seem to be the players don't seem to be deterred by the 30 points, 40 points deficit anymore, and they do score very quickly. You could say momentum shift, but once it's swung, it just happens so quickly. And if you close your eyes, you miss it.
Well, it's best not to go to the bathroom or have a little break or have a little snooze or whatever. If it looks like it's a boring match and your team is 10 goals down, don't go to sleep, because when you wake up, they might be in front again. That's what's happening in modern day football.
Yeah, do you have any theory for that?
My theory is that because most of the teams are fairly even this year, except for Brisbane, as I mentioned before, I think the playing lists are fairly even, the teams are fairly even, and sometimes there's a little bit of complacency that sets in. In previous years, if you were 5 or 6 goals up and there was only 1 quarter left to go, you could probably put that down to a victory, but that is not happening this year. Teams that have 6, 7, 8 goals up are being run down and losing the match.
And in the last 2 minutes.
Yes, in the last 2 minutes, sometimes after the siren, but it's actually quite exciting. The only match that didn't seem to be quite close over the weekend was the Adelaide Crows against the Fremantle, and the gap in that match was 100 points.
Whopper, isn't it? Whopper. And Fremantle, I thought, had a reasonable chance to, come out challenging Adelaide. But do you think it was a ground condition?
I think the ground did have a lot to do with it. It was partially a lake, and Crows don't go well in lakes, but this time around the Adelaide Crows were like ducks in water. They played magnificently. The Fremantle Dockers, I thought that Fremantle was actually close to the water, so I thought that they would play reasonably well, but they were completely thrashed. And even though the difference in the game was over 100 points, it was quite fascinating in the sense that you had two evenly matched teams, on paper at least, but it was like the Adelaide Crows had a big stick and they were just beating the Fremantle Dockers into a pulp. They kicked over 20 goals, Fremantle Dockers only kicked 6 goals. So it was a thrashing. I think it was the ground partially to blame for that, but maybe Adelaide are back to their best form.
So, okay, we mark it. Adelaide is back in her form. And I do think Fremantle without the Sunderland, do you think they do have a limited chance?
Well, every team has a stabiliser in their team, and whether it's someone like Aaron Sandilands, for the Sydney Swans, it's Jared McVeigh. He's the stabiliser in the team. When he plays in the team, he stabilises everything. Everyone's a little bit calm and they feel a bit more secure. Last week he didn't play, they lost the match. I think Aaron Sandilands is a little bit the same in the Fremantle Dockers. When he doesn't play or if he doesn't perform, he's the stabiliser. When he's not there, they fall apart. They are very unstable.
And they did fall down, yes, indeed. Now, another game I watched with the keen interest was of course, the Dream Time at the G, the game between Essendon and Richmond.
That was an excellent game. Absolute spectacle at the beginning of the match with the Dreamtime celebrations, and the quality of the match was excellent as well. So it was a strange match initially. It looked like Essendon were going to run away with it, but Richmond came back and ran over the top of Essendon. I think they were sick of the honourable losses.
Yes, I was surprised to see Richmond hanging on to initially coming back. They were led at half-time one day. Essendon was ahead. But, then the Richmond came back and actually hang on to the lead. That was, I thought, brilliant. And all the star players performed. But going back to that Ramadan theme, there was one player I was showing keen, I was watching with the local mates with the keen interest. That was Huli. Huli was the name, the guy with the Lebanese background. And, I explained to the Sumatran guy, he's a Lebanese background, he's a Muslim. And they looked at the, player and how could he run? How could he perform so well? Is he not observing Ramadan? I'm really curious to ask him, what sort of daily routine he has to have during the month of Ramadan. 3 more weeks to go and we may find out the secret.
Well, Bakar Houli is a devout Muslim. He's not a radical, but he loves his AFL and he loves Islam as well. So he manages to combine his religion and AFL quite well. He still manages to pray 7 times a day, and he can actually do it at the MCG because the MCG does have a prayer room there. So he can easily combine football, running around, and Ramadan.
Yes, we have to accommodate those, AFL to become a truly national, not just respecting our ancestors, current, legitimate owners of land, as well as, newcomers from different parts of the world with different beliefs. On the field, football is the winner.
Well, the first Muslim to play AFL at the AFL level was Adam Uze. Yes, he played in the 1990s and his family came from Albania, where they fled the horrible rule of Enver Hoxha, one of the most severe communist rulers of the post-war era. And his family fled Albania. And I think the good thing about AFL is that it encourages all people from all backgrounds to play the game. And we did have Indigenous round last weekend. I'm looking forward to the time that we have the Crescent round or the Islamic round or something to celebrate Islamic culture in Australia. But I think it just shows that AFL does have a role in world politics, and it has a history of rescuing people from war zones and trouble spots. I don't mean that literally. They're not part of the UN where they go into Kosovo or Sudan or Rwanda or places like that and actually lift up the players out of the war zones. But yeah, they offer them an avenue for success in Australia, and I think it's a very good thing.
Yes. And talking about that theme, I was looking at the women's AFL player. Is that the right way to say women's AFL player? It sounds a bit odd.
No, well, that's the correct way to attribute that. And there's a fantastic player for the Auburn Giants in the western parts of Sydney, Lael Kassem. She wears the hijab while she's playing the football, and she had the goal of the year in 2015.
Yes, I watched it on YouTube, and she was just fantastic. Run, and the hijab looks great.
Yes, I think there should be more of the hijab in AFL, and maybe that's something that could be promoted during the Crescent round or the Islamic round, whenever that happens. Hopefully it will happen soon. It's not going to happen this year, but let's hope that it might happen next year.
Maybe combined with the month of Ramadan, that would be good. Yeah, Crescent round.
Send me no letter. Don't think I could forgive you. See, our word is slowly dying. I'm not wasting no more time. Don't think I could believe you.
The other thing that I noticed on the weekend was the umpires were getting in the act again.
Yes, they seem to keep coming back when nothing happens, and they want to sort of raise their hands and say, yeah, don't forget us, we're here, we're part of the game. And one thing I noticed in that dream time at the G match is that deliberate decision. They're deliberately rushed behind.
Yes, let's listen to that.
So he just sinks the slipper into it. All about the bounce, not enough carry. Short rushes it over. Was he under pressure? Umpire said no.
That's 5 metres from you. Jaden, up on the line, please.
Do you want to see that in the game where the player pulls up behind? I'm not sure about that, but anyway, it's been paid.
Yeah, so it's another one of those strange decisions. For those people that don't understand the rule, it goes like this. If you're a defender and you're in the opponent's goal square, you need to be under pressure before you can knock it through for a point or a behind. And if the umpire deems that your intention is not to keep the ball inside the boundary, you get a free kick awarded against you, and that usually results in a goal to the opposition team.
Yeah, there's two issues there. One is, how you actually, interpret the intention. I have noticed in the rules of games in AFL, there's only two rules that your intention is questioned. Not your action per se, but your intention, like deliberately out of bounds and deliberately rushed behind. Umpires have to interpret. That is always involving a grey zone, isn't it? And the second point of that rule is that is the penalty too harsh? As you said, it's often resulted in a goal. So if you do that, you're giving opposition a goal. And if it was in a tight game, it's going to be a real controversy.
I think there would be controversy, but I'm not so concerned about whether the penalty is too harsh or whether it's contentious or whether it's too complicated, because life is complicated, and that's the good thing about AFL, that it has complicated rules. Otherwise it would end up being like soccer, which has very simple rules, and we don't want that. My concern is that the umpires are getting in on the act. They see very skilled players kicking the goals of the year, taking the marks of the year, playing very, very skillfully. And as you mentioned before, I think they're feeling a little bit left behind and they want to be the focus of attention as well. So I think their feeling is, you saw that goal, it was a fantastic one. You saw that mark, that was a fantastic one, but you haven't seen anything yet. Look at this contentious rule that I'll just implement. And look at this contentious free kick that I'll implement here as well. So then everyone will talk about the umpires for the rest of the week. And I think that's what it is. I think they're possibly egomaniacs. They like to be the centre of attention. And if the game's getting out of hand where players are getting too much attention, that's when they call the contentious decisions. Focus goes back on to the umpiring and they love it.
Is that why they seem to wear, more often than not, very, very vivid colours, fluoro almost, to be visible?
Yes, they do like to stand out in the crowd. And the other factor is that there's only 3 field umpires on the day. I know that there's the boundary umpires and then there's the goal umpires as well, but there's only 3 field umpires, and they're like a team within a team.
So you reckon we should have 18 field umpires dressed in fluoro yellow, running alongside with each player? That should be fun.
We're getting that way, and it might end up having to be a situation where there's 18 field umpires, but all of them will need to have legal skills because they'll need to interpret intent. And it's not like a television show where they have to determine intent and all that sort of thing, but it's just getting that way where they'll need to have legal skills, and then there'll be appeals and that sort of thing, court of disputed returns. I think we'll end up being a bit of a legal minefield, but I think that's the way that we're heading. We'll probably need to have 18 field umpires on the field.
I would like to see that.
Watch me do my thing, get lost into my singing. Heart like New Orleans, and cars be crew and jeans, yeah. Another wake, sterile on and vacant. Living in conditions of the motor matrix. Only paying pounds on a proper naked. Only point of my with the bullet was a paper. Ain't here to fight, some do to fuck a fan with a spouse. Brother light show me to burn.
One of the special features that we have in the protected zone is team songs. Most of the team songs we think are pretty lousy. There may be 1 or 2 good ones, but the team song that we're looking at this week is the one by Geelong.
I must say I quite like the Geelong team song. Isn't it based on old Carmen? Am I wrong?
No, you are not wrong at all. It is actually from an opera called Carmen. It's the Toreador song by Bizet.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think it's got a bit of class and very unlike, compared to sort of Gold Coast or Fremantle. It's got certain class.
It does have a bit of class, but Bizet was around a long, long time ago. This opera was written a long, long time ago. I think we need something a bit more contemporary. But for those of our audience that are not familiar with the Geelong team song, not familiar with the Toreador song or Bizet or Carmen, let's listen to it.
We are Geelong, the greatest team of all. We are Geelong, we're always on the ball. We play the game as it should be played, at home or far away. Our banners fly high from dawn to dark, down at Gardenia Park.
So there it is. In the original form, it's all about bullfighting, and it was actually adopted by Geelong in 1963.
That's quite recent, only 50 odd years ago.
54 years ago, and the year that they introduced the team song, based on the Toreador song, they did win the premiership.
Oh, so by giving them a new song this year, do you think they might have a chance beating Adelaide this weekend to start with?
I think they will, and we'll let you know what the team song is towards the end of the program, and I think it will give them encouragement not just for the weekend but for the rest of the season. So we'll check that out later on.
Go the Cats!
this weekend is quite a strange one in AFL. There's 18 teams in the competition, and if each team plays the other one on the weekend, that gives you 9 matches. But this round, which is round 11, there's only 6 matches. What's going on there, Lin Tang?
I think we are getting shortchanged, isn't it? Or what is called buys. Strange one. Nearly half the league is having day off. Maybe they're sort of following the Ramadan and having a bit of a nap time. I don't know. I'm not personally very keen on the this kind of buys. Do they need it? Do the players really need a buy, or is that for the TV ratings? I don't know. I don't know the reasons.
Well, AFL, as you would know, is a very arduous sport, and it's like running 16 marathons in a 2-hour period every week for 22 games in the whole year. So I'm in two minds about this situation. As far as the spectators are concerned, if you're used to having 9 matches every weekend, that's great, it's fantastic, and you do get used to it. But then when you've got 2 consecutive weeks of only 6 matches, it's a little bit of a letdown, and I'm not sure what the reasons are, whether it's to give the players a good old-fashioned rest, or whether they're a little bit lazy, or what it is. Like, I'm not so sure about it, because when you compare it with Premier League soccer in England, they play 38 games at least in the English Premier League, and then they have the FA Cup, the Europe Cup, the Championship League, all these other things. Do you think we could have more games?
I think soccer example is a bit way too much, and I'm quite happy the games played over 6 months in Australia. But if we have to have a bye, can we just have a sort of week off? Like Ramadan. One month of a year. You have this strange way of living. And if we have to have a bye, why can't we just have a week off? No football.
Well, what they could do is have a week off for all of the 18 AFL clubs, but then have some sort of charity or celebrity match. They could have 2 celebrity matches if they wanted to. Old players against the very old players or something like that, or the under 40s against the under 60s, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think. I think that would be more sort of fun, and instead of, like we have 6 teams, and if you look at the ladder, some teams have played 10, some teams have played 11, that kind of sort of, so, this team wins, are we going up or are we going down? It's just hard to work out the ladder, but it will make it easier for, a mathematically challenged person like myself to look at the ladder and sort of actually know, where everyone is. And I quite like the idea of, under 40 versus, over 40 kind of game, and, pay some respects to old past players.
Well, in that way, you would be paying respect to young and old players, giving the young players a bit of a break, and then giving the old players a spotlight for at least a week or 2 or something like that. But
it's a win-win situation that doesn't happen in real life or in the game of football.
Yes, I think we should go for that. So as we mentioned, round 11 is a shortened round. There are only 6 matches, so it's round 11 and 12 that will have 6 matches only. So round 11 commences on Thursday night, and it's a big match between Port Adelaide and Hawthorn.
So round 11 is almost halfway mark, isn't it?
Yes, it is. There are 22 matches in the entire season, and after round 11, that will be roughly the halfway mark of the season.
So the ladder position will be, shaped. Will that change a lot from, in the latter half of the season, you reckon? And if it is going to be shaken, Will Hawthorn play any part?
That is a very, very good question. If you had have asked me this question last year or the year before or the year before that, possibly going back 20 years, I would say yes, after round 11, the season is taking very solid shape. If you're not in the top 8 by round 11, you're probably not going to make it at all. But this time around, it's very difficult to discern. Teams from number 1 up to number 17 have all got a chance of playing in the finals this year, and that hasn't happened for a long, long time.
So in other words, you're saying Hawthorn might make it to a final 8?
Well, they may make it to the final 8. They could finish second or they could finish 17th. It's very hard to say in this very, very even 2017 AFL season.
Which is a good thing, keeping everyone excited. And yes, Thursday night, it's a must-win for both teams. Hawthorn coming out of a very, gutsy win against Sydney.
Yes, it was a very good match, and it is being played in Adelaide. I think I'd probably have to go for Port Adelaide on this one because it's a home ground, and Hawthorn just don't seem to be. They are up and down team this year. They were up last week. It's just a question of whether they can maintain that for 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I agree with you. Port to come out winning.
The match of the round. It's on Friday night. It's Geelong against Adelaide. Is this the preview for the AFL Grand Final this year?
Well, some people say that, and it could well be if Cats maintain some, momentum and keep this new team song happening. Adelaide was impressive last week, and so was Geelong. They withstood this pressure, and I was impressed by both. So both of them to win.
Well, that will be interesting to see what happens if both of them win, but
it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win.
Yes, we'll go for the win-win situation for both of them, which could either mean literally a win-win or it could mean a draw, but we'll work that out later on. We're not having a Super Saturday this weekend. The Super Saturday is when we have 5 or 6 matches played on the Saturday. This time around, it's a little bit wimpy. We've only got 3 matches.
We're shortchanged.
Yes, we've been shortchanged, but the first one is Gold Coast against West Coast. It's a battle of the coasts.
Whoa, which coast will come out winning? And what's the weather like? And which coast we're playing?
Playing on the East Coast is being played on the Gold Coast, and Gold Coast play reasonably well at home, and West Coast play miserably when they're away from Perth. So this one's a little bit difficult to work out.
And Gary Ablett may come back to play for Gold Coast.
I'm tipping Gold Coast for this one.
Yeah, you go for the coast. I'll go for the coast too.
So one of the coasts will win. That's good to hear. The next match is Greater Western Sydney against Essendon, and that's being played in Sydney on Saturday afternoon.
Yes, Essendon was going very well in the first half last week. While GWS came, winning against West Coast, completing their win against every team in the competition. It took them more than 5 years, but now they are winners.
Yes, they did defeat West Coast last week, and it did take a long time, but sometimes good things take a little bit of time. But they played very, very well last week against West Coast. We predicted that West Coast would win that match, and they didn't. So Greater Western Sydney, they're playing very well. They had half of their team out through injury last week. Essendon are a very enthusiastic team. I like the look of them. But there's just something about Greater Western Sydney. I think they look like a real team this year. A real team.
Yes, I totally agree. And, they're the winners, I think. They will. They've got the look. They've got the poise. They've got the horses. Yes, they will win.
The final match on Saturday is North Melbourne against Richmond. And it's interesting to point out that this is a rematch of the 1974 Grand Final.
Now, who won that match?
Richmond won that match, and they won it quite handsomely against North Melbourne.
Is that the last time Richmond won? The flag?
The last time Richmond won a flag was in 1980.
So they won another one after that. And this year, it's interesting. Richmond, we were asking the questions all the time. Are they real deal? They lost 4 in a row after they won 5. But last week, I think they may have come back on the winners list, and they seem to sort of continue, sort of keep winning for a few games before they start losing few. Judging from that sort of pattern, I think Richmond may be too strong.
The interesting thing about this match is that for most of this season, both of these teams have been playing honourable losses. And the honourable loss is when you play very, very well, but you just come up a little bit short, you lose by a goal or 2 or something like that. Coaches hate the idea of honourable losses, but both teams got into the habit of the honourable loss. And North Melbourne have shaken that off a little bit. Richmond have definitely shaken that off. So it's a little bit difficult to decide whether...
So you reckon it's going to be the loss-loss situation, even the honourable?
It could be that situation, either another draw, and that's always... It's not really a win, it's not a loss, but I tend to think of a drawn match as a loss. So hard to decide in this game. I'm going for a draw.
Oh, loss.
Sunday is a very strange day because we're so used to having games all weekend, starting on Friday night, sometimes a Thursday night, all day long on Saturday, and then all day long on Sunday. This weekend there's only one match on the Sunday and it starts at 4:40 in the afternoon. Yeah, so the final match on Sunday afternoon, which completes round 11, is Fremantle against Collingwood, and it's being played in Perth.
And how do they go, Fremantle, perform at home?
Fremantle have got a very good record at the moment in Perth, and they actually had a very good record away from Perth as well up until last weekend. They don't like playing in Adelaide. Both of the matches that they've played in Adelaide this year, they lost the first one by 89 points against Port Adelaide, and they lost the next one against Adelaide by 100 points. That was on the last weekend. So I think they've got bad memories of Adelaide Oval, but they've got very fond memories of Perth and everywhere else.
But in recent years, Collingwood are performing rather well in West Coast, not just against Fremantle, but also West Coast. They seem to travel well, that team, Magpies.
Yes, they do, and they will have their backs against the wall because whenever you play a team in Perth, it's always very, very difficult to win the game over there. Something about the weather or the time difference or the travel, all these different things. So Collingwood will have their backs against the wall.
That means they've got the chance.
They've got a very good chance, and Fremantle were absolutely shocking last weekend. But as has happened for most of this year, we bag a team, we say that they're hopeless, they won't win another game, and then they come up trumps the following weekend. So very difficult to predict this one.
And I was looking at the win-loss and they scored for and against. Fremantle has got rather remarkably bad average, 81.5. How do you rate that?
That's very poor for a team in the top 8. They're currently sitting in 6th position. They need to do something about that. Collingwood have got a very much higher percentage, but they've won less games. So backs to the wall, I'm going for Collingwood.
Yeah, I'll go for the Pies.
So the program this week is a little bit shorter, not by much, only by about 3 or 4 minutes, but it's a little bit shorter because the AFL has decided that only 6 games are being played this weekend, so it's very disappointing, but let's look on the bright side. At least there's 6 matches. It would be worse if there were no matches. So let's look on the bright side of life. You've been listening to The Protected Zone, where we talk about everything relating to AFL. And I'm Eddie J, and I'll be seeing you next week.
Okay, Linton and I'm from West Sumatra signing off. Yes, see you next week.
And what's the song that we're going out with?
Oh, it's a new Geelong team song.